It's really a new era. Halo is on PlayStation going forward, starting with Halo Campaign Evolved.
Those were the 6 words, spoken by a man in a PlayStation shirt at the Halo World Championship in October 2025. For 25 years, Master Chief had been the reason millions of people bought an Xbox instead of the competition. The franchise practically built Xbox Live, sold the first console almost single-handedly, and became the closest thing the brand ever had to a mascot. And the studio that owns it had just announced it was crossing over to the one machine he was created to beat. By June 7, 2026, that crossover had both a date and a twist. At the Xbox Games Showcase, the same company sending Halo to PlayStation took a nearly finished version of Gears of War and pulled it off PlayStation completely. Now that is the same company, making 2 entirely different decisions running in opposite directions. Which leaves one question hanging over the entire event. A question nobody inside Microsoft seems willing to answer cleanly. Does Xbox still know what Xbox is supposed to be?
Xbox is increasing its price because of the tariffs.
To understand why Halo crossing over feels so strange, you have to remember what it used to mean. When the original Xbox launched in 2001, it was an unknown American box trying to break into a market Sony and Nintendo had already carved up between them. And Halo, Combat Evolved, was the thing that made people take it seriously. Halo 2 then laid the foundation of modern online console gaming, turning Xbox Live into the place where competitive multiplayer lived. For 2 decades, the green armor and the brand were a single idea, and you could not picture one without the other. So when Halo Campaign Evolved was dated for July 28, 2026, the platforms printed beneath it carried real weight. Xbox, PC, and the cloud were expected. The 4th name on the list was PlayStation 5. The ground-up remake of the very first Halo, the game that started everything, would arrive on Sony's console day 1, included with Game Pass from the moment it launched. The franchise that once existed to sell Xboxes was now being used to reach the people who never bought one. If that move suggested a company tearing down its own walls, the very next announcement suggested the opposite. Where Halo was being sent everywhere, Gears of War E-Day was being locked down. The prequel was confirmed for October 6, 2026 on Xbox and PC alone, and Microsoft went out of its way to make the decision permanent. The exclusivity was declared from the showcase stage, and Xbox confirmed through its own channels that this carried no timer and no quiet PlayStation release to follow. The strange part is everything that had already slipped out before that announcement. For example, there was a retail SKU and a barcode for a physical PS5 copy that had been registered. Also, there was a European ratings listing that had quietly included the PlayStation version, and a PS5 edition went live on Walmart pre-order page and then quietly vanished within hours. Industry insider Jeff Grubb described a build of the game for Sony's console that was effectively complete, sitting finished, with the call to cancel it made at the last possible moment. In his words, the decision just got made. This is the point where the showcase stops being a list of games and turns into a puzzle. One franchise is being given away to the competition. Another is being yanked back from it at the 11th hour. Both choices came from the same leadership, in the same week, and each one points to a completely different idea of what Xbox is for. To see how a company could do both at once, you have to follow the trail of how it got here. The pattern began in February 2024. Phil Spencer, then the head of Xbox, sat down for what was billed as a business update and confirmed that 4 Xbox-published games would launch on rival consoles.
So we made the decision that we're going to take 4 games to the other consoles.
He framed it as a contained experiment, repeating that it was just 4 games and not a shift in strategy. Those 4 were Sea of Thieves, Hi-Fi Rush, Pentiment, and Grounded. A leaked internal memo from the same stretch described his real ambition in far broader terms, imagining a future where every screen, everywhere, was effectively an Xbox. What followed made the just 4 games line impossible to defend. Hi-Fi Rush landed on PlayStation and sold beyond expectations. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, a marquee first-party title, reached PS5 within months of its debut. Forza Horizon, Age of Empires, and others crossed over in turn, and persistent rumors placed even Starfield on the same road. By early 2025, Microsoft's own studios were generating more pre-orders on the PlayStation Store than any other publisher on the platform. The experiment had quietly become the business, and Halo on PlayStation is simply the largest domino in a line that has been toppling for 2 years. You'd find the reason behind this inside Microsoft's earnings reports. In the quarter ending March 2026, Xbox hardware revenue fell 33%, driven by fewer consoles sold, and total gaming revenue slipped to roughly $5.33 billion. Across the generation, the PlayStation 5 has sold past 90 million units, while the Xbox Series consoles sit near 35 million, a little over a third of Sony's total. A console that few people are buying cannot justify keeping blockbuster games away from the 90 million players who chose the other box, and every Halo or Indiana Jones sold on PlayStation becomes revenue. The Xbox install base alone could never deliver. The subscription side carried its own pressure, and the wound was self-inflicted. Game Pass Ultimate jumped 50% in late 2025, climbing from $20 a month to $30, and the result was millions of cancellations over the span of a few months. Microsoft walked the price back down to $23 by spring 2026, a quiet admission that the increase had done real damage to the one part of the business it had been built around. Behind all of it loomed the Activision Blizzard purchase, announced at $69 billion and ultimately costing more than $75, the most expensive acquisition the medium has ever seen. A bill that size demands to be paid back, and it gets paid back faster when Call of Duty, Halo, and everything else reaches every player willing to spend a cent. The same financial gravity that pushed Halo onto PlayStation is what makes the Gears reversal so revealing, because both came from new hands at the top. Phil Spencer had stepped aside, Asha Sharma now ran Xbox, and the exclusivity call delivered from that showcase stage was hers. In her first major comments as boss, she argued that to be a genuine platform, a company must own exclusive content and services worth buying the hardware for. Gears of War. E-Day, pulled back from PlayStation at the final hour, reads as that philosophy taking physical form. Yet the Halo she inherited was already on its way to Sony, and she let it go. One executive holding two beliefs that cancel each other out, and acting on both inside a single broadcast. The picture only grows heavier when you look at what Microsoft had already done to its own teams. In January 2024, roughly 1,900 jobs were cut across the gaming division. Months later, Tango Gameworks, the studio behind the widely praised Hi-Fi Rush, was shut down alongside Arcane Austin, even as their work was still being celebrated by the people who played it. For anyone convinced that Xbox was quietly retreating from the console business, closing acclaimed studios while shipping the Survivors games straight to the competition looked like the clearest evidence the theory could ask for. Then the same company that appeared to be walking away from hardware announced a great deal more of it. Project Helix, a next-generation Xbox built on custom AMD silicon, is already in development, with kits promised to creators in 2027 and claims of a performance leap in order of magnitude beyond the current machines. Beside it sits the ROG Xbox Ally, a handheld that runs Windows and treats Xbox less as a box beneath the television and more as software that travels wherever the player goes. A business genuinely surrendering does not pour resources into designing the machine meant to define the next 10 years. Then the same company that appeared to be walking away from hardware announced a great deal more of it. Project Helix, a next-generation Xbox built on custom AMD silicon, is already in development, with kits promised to creators in 2027 and claims of a performance leap in order of magnitude beyond the current machines. Beside it sits the ROG Xbox Ally, a handheld that runs Windows and treats Xbox less as a box beneath the television and more as software that travels wherever the player goes. A business genuinely surrendering does not pour resources into designing the machine meant to define the next 10 years. The audience caught in the middle of all this split into two camps that still cannot agree on what they actually witnessed. Longtime Xbox owners spoke of betrayal, of buying a console on the promise of exclusives that were handed over one by one, of trust spent and never returned, with many swearing the next box they buy will carry a different logo. Others saw the reverse story entirely, celebrating a legendary game reaching tens of millions of new players as a victory for everyone who picks up a controller, no matter which brand sits under their television. The same showcase produced both reactions because the showcase genuinely supports both of them. That is what makes the fallout so difficult to settle. The logic that explains Halo's leap onto PlayStation is the very logic that should have carried Gears across with it, and instead, Gears was dragged back at the last second. The strategy that says exclusives no longer matter shared a stage with the strategy that says exclusives are everything. A company building its next console does not behave like one giving up, and a company giving away its mascot does not behave like one digging in. Every piece of evidence pointing in one direction is answered by another, pointing the opposite way. The showcase laid all of it out across a single broadcast and offered no key to read it by. Whatever Xbox is turning into, it has not decided yet. And until the day it does, the cleanest answer to the question is the one Microsoft keeps refusing to give.